This News is reporting that Vice President Kamala Harris could announce her running mate by Monday. And we also know that Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear has submitted materials for vetting and consideration.
WKYT's Kelsey Soto is talking with political experts about what this could mean for the Commonwealth, no matter the outcome. It is our top story at 6.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear has been on the move in the recent weeks, making appearances at Democratic events in Iowa and Georgia, supporting likely presidential nominee Kamala Harris. At an event in Lexington on Tuesday, senior advisor Rocky Adkins addressed his absence.
Most of you probably know he's a little bit busy right now. His name is being mentioned quite a bit if you've been watching the news.
Political professors around the Commonwealth have kept a close eye on the national attention as Beshear's name is floated as a possible running mate.
And so I've definitely felt the buzz among just everyone I've talked to in all capacities around the state. And I definitely find that encouraging as we come into the election, because of course we do want people to go to the polls and vote.
Experts say the Democratic Party are honing in on swing states needed to move the needle, like Arizona and Pennsylvania. However, Beshear has still submitted his information for consideration.
Certainly, he's an interesting comparison to J.D. Vance, which is, I think, perhaps one of the reasons why he's made it so far on the list, is that he is an interesting sort of counter to that.
CBS News expects Harris to make a decision by Monday. She plans to hit the road with her VP pick in several key battleground states next week. In Lexington, Kelsey Soto, WKYT.
And the Democratic National Convention is slated to kick off in Chicago August 19th. Political professors say they will be watching to see if Governor Beshear is asked to speak, and if so, when in the lineup he would appear and what topics he would be tasked with presenting.